Cowboy live debate analysis. As you can see, we're living here and we're alive. But as one of the owners of the station, I'm going to take a minute to share a little bit of personal life before we go into our debate analysis. My very first friend in life passed away last Thursday. His name was David Lee Farber, and we've been friends since we were in first grade together. And David was a wonderful athlete, but he wanted to do more in life than be an athlete. He wanted to be a doctor because he wanted to help people. When he finished college, his grades weren't quite good enough to get into an American medical school, so he was able to go to Guadalajara Medical School in Mexico. And his family wasn't rich. He borrowed from friends and wherever he could to get through. He lived like a very impoverished Mexican for those 4 years. He was able to come back here and do his internship and residency, and he chose to go into anesthesia because he wanted to do something where he could really help people alleviate pain. And anesthesiologists do pain management for people who are alive, and then of course they put people to sleep when you have surgeries, and then they get paid to wake you up after the surgery. He basically gave his life to helping people. And when, because of his illness, he could no longer do anesthesia, he really got interested in World War II and the individual battles. And last year he was able to go to the Normandy battlefield, and he was so moved by all those markers of all those men who gave their lives to bring freedom to the world, to make this a better place to live. And now his work here is done, and he has joined them. And as I watch this debate, and I watch these people wanting to be our president, I'm going to go start around like we always do, start with everybody. Peggy, this is Peggy Costello, who is a retired history teacher. Did you hear anything from either of these people that led you to believe that either one of them were interested in helping their fellow man?
I think that Hillary Clinton has a track record of doing that. I think Donald Trump is new to the program, so to speak. I would say that the whole thing has become so acrimonious. I'm not seeing specifically the helping of people at this point.
Mary, one of my partners, Mary Fitzpatrick, did you hear any of them say anything that led you to believe they had this kind of commitment to wanting to help people?
I think they both want to get elected. I didn't hear anything that told me that they're going to help the people. I hear a lot of words. I've seen a lot of no action for the last 7 years, maybe for longer than that. So I just don't feel that they're looking out for the little people. They're looking out to help themselves.
Jim, my other partner, Jim Fitzpatrick.
It's hard to argue with what Mary said. That I'd like to be able to say that they both showed concern for
just helping people in general.
And it may come to me before this is over, but so far I haven't seen it.
This is one of my very good friends, Dr. John Hodgkin, who is one of the foremost pulmonologists in the world. That means, for those of us who are not medical speak, he's a lung doctor. He helps us breathe, and he has just designed a wonderful program. You can get it on your iPhone or your Android phone, a stop smoking program. And he's one of the few people who actually has a program that yields success, and he's designed an app on the telephone so that cell phone, so everybody can easily take advantage of this. Anyhow, so here's somebody who has spent his life trying to help people as a lung doctor. He sees more evils of cigarettes than most of us do, and he wanted to help. Did you hear anything on this show, on this debate, from either one of these candidates that made you think they might want to help people?
So first, I didn't know Clark was going to mention the Stop Smoking app. Since he did, it's called Quit Right, R-I-G-H-T, Quit Right, I mean quitting the right way. And it is on Android phones as well as iPhones. I believe that both Hillary and Donald do want to help people in this country. I really believe that they're both sincere in wanting to help people. What I thought was lacking was specifics from either one of them about how they were going to do it. I was particularly disappointed that almost 1/3 of the time for the whole debate was spent with them attacking each other's character. When we have so many important issues in this country, including how to provide health care, our economy, that's a terrible problem, security, and to spend almost 1/3 of the whole debate attacking each other's character, I think is actually shameful.
This is Mary McGee, who has been
Hello,
my
thank
friend
you.
for, what did we figure it out was? 50 years.
And I don't know why, but it's been 50 years.
And Mary has been in advertising, and she's been very athletic all her life, involved in racing. Did you?
I listened.
I gotta ask the question.
I
I
heard
do my
I heard
job.
1, 2, 3, 4 times already.
What did you hear from either of these two that made you think they want to help people?
I think the only one that is really concerned with helping is probably Hillary, because she has this long background of helping people. Trump doesn't have a background of helping people, but he does have a background of using people. And there are lawsuits to prove that. Now, specifics.
Are you
One of the
already
things-
in the first question showing that you're a partisan?
I'm for Hillary. One of the things I don't like.
Well, I'm
about
tickled
these-
to death. We had to import you from out of state because we haven't been able to find anyone for Hillary around here. Go ahead.
One of the things that I don't like about the debates or this town hall is they're not allowed enough time to actually talk about the specifics. I mean, you
I
have
thought
to
they
go,
had plenty of time
you
to
have-
whip each other up.
You have to go to their website and Hillary.com to find out really what the specifics are. I am interested in the specifics. I believe
Do you
with
know
her,
what
her
Donald's-
long
do you know what
background
Donald's website
in
is?
office, I think that she probably has some specifics.
Do you know what Donald's website is?
No,
So you have no idea whether he has specifics there or not.
I doubt that he has too many specifics.
Okay, we have one partisan here, folks. Miss Lilio Sunderland. Now, Lilio started out in life as a librarian, and she got bored with books, so she went back to school and she became a master of social work, and she's one of the best psychotherapists I know. She hasn't treated me, so she doesn't claim responsibility for my ailments, but had some very interesting observations. And she's given, of course, her life to helping people. Did you hear anything from either of these candidates that made you think that they might really want to help people?
Well, I heard from Hillary that she has worked with children and tried to better children's lives. I know that she has a long history of working for betterment of children and families ever
We
since she
can't
was
bang
in
on
school.
the table. The mic picks it up.
Emphasis, Clark, emphasis.
Doesn't come across that way. So you were telling me that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Hillary comes across as empathetic and helping children in her past.
I think so. I thought so this evening.
And did you feel anything about Mr. Trump wanting to help people?
You know, that wasn't what I picked up from Donald Trump. Not this evening.
Okay. So, had you made up your mind before you saw this debate who you were going to vote for?
I have an opinion, yes, but I met this debate with an open mind.
Okay. Who did you find most persuasive in this debate?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by persuasive. What I found myself distracted with by just noticing how many times he said it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. It's 2 against 1. It's 3 on 1. All right, all right, all right. And he really seemed to be bothered by the fact that they stopped him.
Okay.
And that distracted me somewhat.
Okay. Did you learn anything that would help you make your decision tonight in the debate?
She was calm. I thought Hillary did not escalate. I think she responded a little bit too quickly sometimes to defend herself, as you have suggested. But I thought she was really pretty thoughtful about not picking up every gauntlet that he threw down.
Okay, and what did you think about Mr. Trump?
I think he was worried about it being fair. I think he was having a really hard time staying on the question. I think there were several times when he just didn't want to answer the question.
Well, I think both of them had that problem, didn't they?
I noticed it more with him, perhaps.
Could that be because you are leaning more to Hillary and are very critical of him?
I'm pretty concerned about him, yes.
Did you, based on his prior performances, had you reached a opinion of Mr. Trump?
Sure.
What was
Who
that?
among us has not?
Okay, well, what was your opinion?
My opinion is he's quick to respond. He's a reactor. What does he call himself? He calls himself a counterpuncher. And the problem with being a counterpuncher is that you're always at the mercy of the person who dangles the bait in front of you. You're always at the mercy. Somebody else can pull your chain if you're a counterpuncher. And that worries me.
About him as a president?
About him as a president, about him as whatever field he's in.
Did you see anything tonight that allowed you to resolve that fear about him one way or another?
I felt he stayed between the lines better this evening. I thought that he probably has done some prep, even though he thinks he doesn't have to. And I thought that if it had gone on much longer, he'd have deteriorated just a little bit more.
But he was a little bit more on point than he was before.
A little bit more disciplined than he has been, yes.
How
He
did
didn't like it though. He didn't like it. He kept saying, "Oh, you're not going to let me talk. She interrupts. I got interrupted. You're interrupting me." I thought he had a hard time with that.
Did you feel that the moderators were fair to both people?
Yes, and I thought the moderators were firm. I liked that they really tried to keep it in control.
Well, Hillary didn't pay any more attention to them than Donald did.
No, she tried to get her word in. She sure did.
Okay. Did you... If I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Thank
So
you.
if I have this wrong, tell me. What I'm hearing you say is that basically he kind of put on a straitjacket to not do what he really wanted to do, and he was pretty much able to do it. But you don't think we saw the real Trump? We saw someone acting for us. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not sure I would use those words, but that makes sense what you just said.
Is that what you're feeling?
I'm feeling that he was kept in pretty tight rein and that he did a better job than he's done before of staying within the discipline. And I think he's probably pretty well coached and has learned a lot over the past few weeks.
How do you like the way he handled the tape recording about his comments on women at the beginning of the show?
Let's see, what did he say? He said it was locker room talk and that he regrets it. But I don't believe for 1 minute that he wrote that speech. He wrote the apology. Does anybody here believe he wrote that apology?
No, he doesn't believe it.
Okay.
Didn't have a lot of credibility with me.
I'm going to go on to you, Mary. You don't believe his apology?
No, I think he objectifies women constantly.
Wait a minute. He does what?
Objectifies. They're not really women to him. They're just another thing to use. That's what I feel about Donald Trump. I think he uses a lot of different people, and especially women.
But then how do you explain that he hired women in executive businesses in construction when nobody else did? What's that finger all about?
One woman. And she was
Well, that's one more than anyone else did.
There are a lot of women in construction, Clark.
Not then.
He was not the only one, only it wasn't ballyhooed. Since he's running for president, he's trying to update his curriculum and present himself in a better light for women. He needs women voters. They're not going to vote for him. Look at what he says about women. It's terrible. Why would a woman want to vote for Donald Trump when he thinks they're just another thing to be used?
Well, maybe because some women look beyond that and think that...
There's no way to look beyond that. I'm sorry.
Okay. What do you think, John? Did you learn, were you decided before you came and watched this debate? Had you figured out what you were going to do? Or were you still on the fence?
I wasn't 100% decided, but I'm leaning one direction. And
Which way is that?
I've been leaning more toward voting for Donald Trump.
And did you see anything today that helped you move one way or another?
I don't think it changed my opinion. One of the things that to me was striking was there were 4 different times that after Donald Trump had listed a number of facts that Hillary stood up and said everything that you just heard from Donald Trump is false. And that's just not true. I mean, there were a number of things he said that were actually true, that you can document, they're irrefutable. For her to stand up and say, everything you just heard from Donald Trump, and she did it 4 different times, is false, to me says she's lying about that. And to me it affects her credibility when she just writes off the whole 2 or 3 minutes 4 different times.
Well, of course, that's real convenient, because then she doesn't have to go point by point and explain it, does she?
No. And as I say, to me, it's not credible for her to do that. And one other thought is that Hillary is a typical politician. And politicians tend to lie in both parties, or if they're not in both major parties, politicians tend to lie. Donald Trump is not a politician. It's clear he's not a politician. He says things that politicians would tend not to say.
At least if they wanted to get elected.
Yeah, because they're not politically correct. And I attended the seminar that Donald Trump spoke at a few years ago having to do with real estate. And
Not Trump University.
It wasn't about Trump University. It was about how to invest in real estate and get ahead. And he actually had a lot of good ideas. I remember one of the things that he said really stood out was, you can't let your opponents attack you. If they do, they're gonna lower people's feelings about your beliefs. And so if people attack you, you need to attack back. Now that may work well in business, and I think it probably did work well for Donald Trump, because he came back from $1 billion of losses.
He came back from being broke to being a billionaire.
Very successful businessman. But in politics, you can't use that philosophy that if somebody disagrees with you, then what you got to do is destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
That may work in business, it doesn't work in politics, and he's not yet learned how to be a politician.
Jim! I think the part of the problem is that he did get away with that in politics all the way through the primaries and eliminated. Now, I didn't care much for the way he went about it, but you got to give him this. His objective was to win, and that's why I think anybody that's against him now had better start giving him the money to pay off. I think he can be one of our better presidents.
Do you think that Hillary could be one of our better presidents?
Well, unfortunately, I followed her too long, back when she was in college, forward, and no, I don't see how that could be.
Are you sure Donald's going to be one of our better presidents? Is it possible he could be one of our worst?
Anything's possible, but I doubt it. He's getting into this for the right reasons.
And why do you think he's getting into it?
Because he heard everybody saying, we need an outsider. We need somebody to come in that's not another damn politician. And so we have an outsider. The next thing we need is somebody that can put together a coalition and can set objectives and get things done.
Well, exactly how is he going to do that? Because everybody hates him. The only thing the Republicans and the Democrats agree about is they hate Trump.
I think they'll start turning around. I was surprised that he got through the night. I figured either he would just get up and walk out, but I like the fact that he didn't. He's a fighter. And what he's told each of the groups, I'll fight for you. I'll fight for your jobs. When they were up
He's kind of already got one.
When they got up into West Virginia, and Hillary said she'll give them all pink slips. They're going to shut them all down. And
Did she say that this evening?
No, she said that to the coal miners back in West Virginia. And she's been trying to take it back ever since.
But I think whenever they start trying to take it back, it's something that's finally got them bothered, that they are going to hit more resistance than they thought.
Kind of like what Donald's trying to do with his state.
Now, I didn't plan to tell anybody about this but Mary, but I was thinking back about what happened with this tape. And I remember that I told Mary today that I was probably in the 3rd or 4th grade. And the summer in San Jose, I went swimming with kids about my age, and I don't know what that would have been. But I remember that we laid there, get out of the pool and lay on the concrete, and we told all these dirty jokes. Now, I'm not sure what anything was, so I can't imagine how I could have related to it. But I do remember that we told what we thought were dirty jokes. I remember that I was in, must have been 7th grade, and a young lady, somebody called her a whore.
Remember, we're on television. We got to clean it up.
Thank you. Somebody called her a bad name, and she chased them for blocks. So I called her what I thought was a bad name, and she chased me for blocks. But it was a form of exercise. Had no idea what the hell all this meant. Now, but it bothered me, and it's apparently bothered me more than I thought, because how at 80 would I think of these things when I was that young? But so be it. I decided some time back I'm going to vote for Trump, and if he's still running, I'm going to vote for him. Unfortunately, he's got the chance of a snowball in hell.
Mary, did you hear anything tonight that helped you reach a decision?
No. I'd made up my mind I was not going to vote for Hillary. I almost decided I wasn't going to vote for Trump. And after the tape came out, I thought, talk about a potty mouth. But I did notice one thing. When he was on the bus talking to the other guy, and they were shooting off their mouth and being macho, when he got off the bus, He shook the lady's hand, and he did not try to kiss her. He didn't try to do anything to her. It was the other guy that had her get in the middle of the conversation between the two of them. And I thought, well, is it just, guy talk, and that's the way they talk? I mean, I had 5 brothers, so I know how they talk. So I still have my reservations about Mr. Trump. But I do believe that after everything I've read about Hillary and everything that I've seen about Hillary, that I don't think that she'll work for the country. I think he will bring back the jobs. I think he will get some people in to help him make good decisions. And my only concern is that he will listen to those good people and that he will do the job that we need him to do, because I think this country's in bad shape.
Do you think he's anti-woman like Mary thinks he is?
I don't.
No.
Do you think women are objects?
I think he likes beautiful women.
Well, who doesn't?
So, and that's what I mean. Doesn't every man have that same opinion? That they
Well,
like
even
beautiful
women like beautiful women.
Well, of course. So, I think he's learned his lesson. I'm sure there's more dirt out there on him, but like I said, he's not a politician. And I'm sick of the politicians, frankly. They never get anything done, and he's right about Hillary. I don't think it's going to change. Look like how long she's been in there. I don't think it's going to change.
Miss Costello,
Yeah.
did you see any? Were you still on the fence when you came today?
Let's put it this way. I don't like his attitude towards women, and we make up over half the electorate. And this is just one more issue. Jim's talking about what happened in grammar school and the potty mouth and so on and getting chased down the street. Donald Trump, we're talking about his 60s. We're talking about a 70-year-old man.
Well, when he did these tapes, he was in his 50s.
No, he was
Even
60. Whatever. Okay, there gets to be a certain point where you grow up, I hope. He knew he was being recorded, and he continued like this anyway. But in other words, it's more of the same. It isn't a shock that this is what we're hearing for the first time. The question was asked, do they model good behavior? The question was asked, does Donald Trump respect people? No, I don't think he does. And he tried very hard to say that Clinton and his wife don't respect women either. And he wanted to get into that deal with Clinton and his behavior towards women. And quite honestly, when you look at the Clinton family and you look at the Trump family, it's pathetic.
Both of them?
Yes, because they both cheated on their wives. They both lied to the American people. And frankly, I'm of the opinion he wanted to get into Bill Clinton's infidelities. How can he get into them? He's had 3 wives, and he was cheating on one with 2, and got her pregnant, which gave way to that and stuff. He has no basis to go there, and I resent the fact that he was trying. I don't see it. So when I look at him, I don't see respect for people. He's bellicose. He's always rising to the bait to fight. I don't like Hillary Clinton, but by golly, Trump is hard to handle.
So did you come any closer to deciding what you're going to do?
No, I'm going to hold my nose a bit longer. You see,
Oh dear.
who's a little less intolerable than the other. I will say that I think Hillary's body language is much better. She went and she talked to the people, where he kind of paced and stumped. I think that she has more polish, but then again, she's been at politics for a whole lot longer. But I would have expected to see a much better learning curve with him since he decided to get into the race for president. And no, I don't see him as presidential in the least. And
Do you
frequently
see-
I find myself saying he's not electable with his
Do you
behavior.
think she's presidential?
She comes across that way more so. But, as people have to really hate her to vote for Trump.
And where are you on that? Do you hate her enough to vote for Trump
I
yet? or-
haven't made up my mind, Clark. I
Okay.
really don't like either one of them for different reasons, but I don't like either one of them.
How did you like the end piece where they asked each of them to say something good about the other?
I think it was desperation time for both of them to come up with something. And I would say basically, they don't have any respect for each other. And I don't necessarily think they have to, but to have a more civilized discussion that'll let the American people feel confident in electing one or the other, they need to try harder.
How did you think about that answer, the last one? Do you find any respect for the other? Anything you like about the other?
Well, she didn't say she respected him. She said she respected his children. Now,
No, that she respected the fact that Donald raised those children,
I don't think she,
and he did a good job of it.
well,
No, that really wasn't exactly what she said.
Okay.
That's actually kind of what I heard, though.
Yeah.
And I thought that was trying to get to say something nice about him.
I
but
think she
had
was
a hard
trying.
time.
She had a hard
She had
time.
a hard time.
She had a hard time. She sure did.
What about you, Jim?
What was the question?
Same one. What did you think about the piece when they asked each of them, did you have anything nice to say about the other?
I thought it was quite a test. And I was really surprised that they both came up with something.
John?
I thought it was a great question.
I did too.
Particularly after
It was a wonderful question.
It was a great way to end the debate.
Yeah, I thought that
On a
was
positive note, yeah.
a really good question. And I thought both of them came up with a good answer, actually. I think it was more of a struggle for Hillary to say something nice about Donald, and she did pick the children as being really good kids, and I think her implication was that Donald had something to do with that.
Well, that's what she said.
But I think what he said about Hillary, that's exactly how he feels. Because I'm back in the real estate days. It was, you've got to be strong and you got to be able to attack people who are attacking you and take them down. I thought his response was really sincere, that he does admire that about Hillary. She's a fighter.
Mary?
Well, but back to talking about Donald and changing and
No, we're on the question, that last question.
oh, she did a great job. And he did a great job. I thought they both did a great job because they've been at loggerheads for so long. Now, I want to say one thing, however. People, especially Republicans, feel that Donald can change, be transformed. Well, I got to tell you, transformation does not happen overnight. It can't happen overnight. And he's been too many years being the Donald. And he doesn't know politics. He doesn't really know that much about the world. And he does not know more than the generals. I'm sorry. He just doesn't.
Or anybody.
Or anybody, maybe. Now, he had the gumption to get into the race, that's fine. And I don't know how much money of his own money he put into it. Who knows? Who cares? I don't think that's important. But he cannot change overnight. And there's no way that is possible. And that's what's so scary about having Donald Trump as being the president.
John F. Kennedy changed overnight. Harry Truman changed overnight.
What are you talking about? John F. Kennedy and Harry Truman changed overnight.
John F. Kennedy changed overnight after the Bay of Pigs, and it's what saved us in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, but he was not Donald Trump.
Huh?
He was not anything like Donald Trump.
You said people can't change in an instant.
No.
And I'm giving examples from history
where
the office changed people. But before we go there, let me finish, because Lilio hasn't answered the question of the moment, which is, what did you think of how they handled the last question? Did they have anything they liked about each other?
Well, I was pretty interested that the moderator said we've got time for one last question, and I think she really worked to get that in there because it had just come up. And I thought I agree with the panel that Hillary kind of sidestepped a little bit and talked about his kids, and that he went straight to the point about her. But what I'm remembering, and said something nice about her, but what I'm remembering is I read that exact same quote in one of the 2 papers I've been reading since I got here. And I don't remember who first said it, but that was what the statement was in the newspaper. She's a fighter and she hangs in there.
Well,
He probably said that about her before.
I don't know if he said it or if somebody else said it.
He said that about Ted Cruz.
He said that about Ted
Yeah.
Cruz.
Yeah, he did.
That's right. He said that yesterday.
okay, I actually found it interesting because I thought the question was first sent to Trump. And when he didn't start talking, Hillary stepped up right to the plate
I
and
heard
started
that
talking.
too, yeah.
So I don't really feel that she was being sincere. I think she was looking for something to say, because I think there's nothing she likes about this man. So she just pulled a Hail Mary on the kids, which was good, quick thinking on her part. You know, nice try, no cigar. I thought Donald hit it out of the park. I think he was completely sincere. I think he does admire that about her. And so there again, you have the stereotypical thing of Hillary just filling up air, not telling her feelings. She was afraid to say her true feelings, which is, Donald, there is not one thing at all I like about you, but she didn't have the guts to do that.
She's not that kind of a person, though.
Huh?
She's not the kind of a person that will go around telling people, especially to their face, I don't like you. She
Wait a
is
minute,
calm,
she spent
cool,
about 30
collected.
minutes. She spent 30 minutes
That's on
telling
the
him how
issue.
much she didn't like him.
That's on the issues and being president.
Well, that's on him, on his locker room talk, on
well
Ms.
deserved.
Housekeeping.
Well deserved. All
Yeah.
that was well deserved. That's not saying
What
anything
happens
about
when we
his
get a partisan here,
personality.
folks?
She was talking about the issues and what has come up.
Uh,
And he deserved it all.
How did you feel about her when they left the White House after his presidency? Taking some of the furniture?
yeah, she stole some of the furniture out of the White House,
I don't know
and they
anything
took
about
all the W's off the typewriter keys for
And our-
George W. Bush.
And
I
are
have
you?
no idea about
Come
any
on,
of that,
that's a
but that's
joke.
funny.
No, it's
no.
serious.
Do you
No,
have any idea?
she had to return over
if they're gonna raise the
$200,000
rates
worth
on
of things to the White
Lincoln
House.
W's
bedroom?
off the typewriters?
No, when they come in, all the typewriters, they still had them on the keyboard. They took the W letters off the keyboards.
That's
the Clinton
funny.
people did.
Wonder who did it. Oh, the staff or somebody in the administration. That's funny, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you think it's funny because you're the taxpayer. You paid the bill for it.
Well, it's still funny.
You know, one of the things I remember from the Clinton administration
Well,
is
wait, Bill's not running for president. Hillary is, not Bill. Let's talk about Hillary and Donald.
I'm going to go and tell this
Hillary and
story.
Donald are a couple.
I remember reading about
Sound right.
Colin Powell, who couldn't get out of when Clinton came into power. He couldn't get out of the administration fast enough because the Clintons at that point in time were part of the anti-Vietnam War generation, and they really hated the military. And Colin Powell couldn't get out of there
But
fast
I
enough.
don't think they hated the military. They hated like me, the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. I don't
They
hate
were
the
not
soldiers. I don't
friends
hate
of
the
Clinton
military.
administration.
I did not like our involvement in Vietnam and losing 56,000 of our young men.
So, did you think you were smarter than the generals?
Oh, God, no.
They're the ones that
But-
sent them in there.
But I'll never forget Westmoreland and the body bag count. That was the most important thing to get over the news wires is the body bag count. That's dead U.S. soldiers.
Well,
that was disgusting, plain
What's
disgusting.
amazing to me is that Hurricane Hillary, having been part of the Vietnam generation, as you and I were, she's right around my age, a little younger than you, but not much. We lived through Vietnam, and we found out what happens when you try and build nations. We found out that it doesn't work. And she was sitting in the Senate, and she voted for the Iraq War to go in and do nation building again.
But they were lied to. The senators in the House were lied to. They were lied to. Yeah,
Hillary never
and
bothered.
Powell lied to the
Hillary-
UN. I mean, they were all lied to. Even
Hillary-
Powell went for it.
Hillary never bothered to go into the room and read the secret intelligence, and I didn't even see the secret intelligence. I lived during Vietnam, and I already knew that you couldn't do nation building. And I was one of the few who was always against the Iraq War, because of the second Iraq War, because it was never going to work. Now I understand Hillary was a senator and George Bush was the president, and we had a Republican Senate and we had a Republican Congress, and we were going to go to war whether she voted for it or not. So her vote was truly insignificant in the outcome. But she still wasn't able to look back through her experience in Vietnam. With all her inside information, she couldn't look back through the experience of Vietnam like you could, like I could, and you could, because you were against the Iraq War, were you not?
Oh, yes.
So, we being outside
But
the
it took a
intelligence...
while because we were bombarded with the information about, we got to go to war, we got to go to war, they've done this.
We were bombarded with the idea that Iraq was responsible for 9/11, but you and I both knew that was a lie. We knew it was the people from Saudi Arabia, not the people from Iraq. But that was what the popular stuff was, and Hillary knew they were from Saudi Arabia. So I have some real problems with her lying is not exactly new to the table. I have a real problem with that. When they talk about judgment, I have a real problem with the judgment on the Iraq War. Now, she's trying to say that Donald supported the Iraq War too. And that is another...
That's on tape.
Well, let me finish. That is an inaccurate statement. He was appearing on the Howard Stern show. He was basically appearing to do what everybody does on Howard Stern, which is discuss sex, because that's primarily what he does. And Howard said, "What do you think about the Iraq War?" And it was the first time anyone asked him, and I don't know, I guess it's okay. And then when he studied it a little bit more before the war started, he came out vociferously against
Everybody
it.
came out against it. Then they
No,
knew that they
before
were
the
lied to.
war he came out against it. When everybody else was for it, he did come out against it. And so they are basically trying to put words into his mouth. And why in the world Hillary, who was in the Senate and had an obligation to find out about it and made the wrong decision, would want to discuss this, to me is another real question about her judgment.
Well,
Actually, Howard Stern this week said that Hillary Clinton's campaign is misquoting what happened on that show, that Donald Trump did not endorse going into Iraq. And Howard Stern criticized the Clinton campaign for trying to mislead people that he did support it. I want to make two comments about Vietnam, because I was in Vietnam, and I ended up in Vietnam because Lyndon Johnson, who was a Democratic president, decided to go from 5,000 advisors to 125,000 boots on the ground, and they needed doctors to take care of the wounded. And so I went during that next year when Lyndon Johnson dramatically expanded what was happening there. And one of the things that is black and white in my mind is I would go over to the air base that was near our battalion location and talk to the Air Force pilots who were flying over North Vietnam and getting shot down like McCain got shot down. And they were very angry because Lyndon Johnson and the politicians in charge were not letting them fight the war the way the generals wanted to fight the war. And it's a good example of politicians losing a war because they weren't willing to listen to Westmoreland and the other generals.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like what's happening in the current administration. Obama not willing to let them fight the war they want to fight.
Yeah.
At least Trump knows when you get in a fight, you're there to win. Not over the next 25 years. Got to get in, get it done, and get out of there. But Trump knows that we have the ability to become powerful in a hurry.
You know, there is a question I would like to ask both of these candidates. And I'm just thinking about it, and I was inspired. I was watching Fox News Sunday this morning, and I saw an interview with Bill O'Reilly, who's written a new book, Killing the Rising Sun, about World War II in Japan. And one of the things he talked about briefly was the decision to drop the atomic bomb, which Harry Truman made. And Bill O'Reilly wrote a personal letter to each of the 5 living presidents asking them if they would drop the bomb. And both Bushes said they would. Jimmy Carter said they would. Obama refused to answer. Bill thinks he would have refused to drop the bomb. Bill Clinton refused to answer. He thinks because his wife is running for president. But I would really be interested in asking both of these candidates, Trump and Clinton, would you have dropped the atom bomb? And I really have a funny feeling that Trump would have dropped it. I'm positive Trump will say that he would have dropped it. You think Hillary will say that she would have dropped it, Peggy?
I think given the nature of the times and circumstances, yes.
How about you, Mary? You think Hillary would have dropped the bomb?
No.
Jim?
Not then, but once it was successful.
She'd have taken the credit for it.
That's what she did with did you hear her say that she killed Osama bin Laden?
Yeah.
She says that every time she gets a chance to.
John, do you think that Trump would drop the bomb, and do you think Hillary would drop it?
I think Trump would support it. I don't think Hillary would.
I didn't ask you, Jim. Did you think Trump would drop it?
Yes.
Mary?
I think he probably would. I have no idea about Hillary. Now, you're going back to the time. At that time,
right.
Second World War.
Yeah.
She would have been a different person. Trump would have been a different person. They'd have both been kids, so they would have had to say, oh, we don't know anything about it. I don't think either one of them would have done it. They wouldn't have known what the heck it was.
Well,
or what
yes,
it was about.
yes,
So
they would.
that's not a good question.
Oh, it's a very good question. You just don't like the answers to it, so you're trying to turn it into a bad question. The question is, if they were faced with a decision that Harry Truman had to make, if they were president at that time, would they have dropped the bomb?
I have no idea. I'll have to ask them.
I would love to. Lilio, what do you think?
I think that they both would have dropped the bomb because given the amount of information that they had and the kind of information that they had, they were being told, and I'm sure it was true, about the number of people that would be killed on the beaches of Japan if they didn't stop it now. And Harry Truman made a tough decision, and it all got really fuzzy when John Hershey wrote the book called Hiroshima, because that was telling us how terrible that really was. But the bottom line was hundreds of thousands of American lives were saved.
Yeah. As Peggy reminded me a little earlier today, Harry Truman said, well, I was elected by the Americans. I wasn't elected by the Japanese.
That's an excellent line.
Your point is that you think that Hillary is not capable of being decisive?
No.
She's too political.
I think she's decisive. And I have to say that much as I share a lot of people's distaste for her, I honestly do think she'd probably drop the bomb. I'm positive that Donald Trump would. I really am pretty sure she would, because she's really much more of a hawk than Obama is, and that most people give her credit for. She's now trying to masquerade as a dove because she was pulled that way by the Bernie Sanders campaign, but She's always been pretty
Well, I agree with you that
militaristic.
she would do whatever she thought was necessary to save American lives. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, well, you would agree with anything that was good about Hurricane Hillary.
Well, not everything.
Oh, well, that's great. What is there that you heard about Hurricane Hillary tonight that you did not approve of or did not like or concerned you?
Didn't hear anything about that tonight.
Well, what have you heard about her other times that would concern you?
Well, I can't speak to that, but I do want to say another positive thing about Hillary.
I asked about what you had that concerned you.
Well, I can't remember.
You've already been talking about
I
the
can't remember. Once I had a concern, but I don't remember what it was. Because one of the things I have to say I admire about Hillary, many things I admire. One of the things I admire
Her ability
about,
to lie, for instance?
she doesn't lie. Is the Bill Clinton debacle with Paula Jones. And everybody was telling her to leave Bill, leave Bill. Here's what I like about Hillary. She had the steadfastness and the thinking ability, the actual brilliance to look into the future. The future.
And see that if she
minute.
stayed with Bill, she could be president.
Just hush. She and Bill were best friends, best communicators together. They have a daughter. We're talking future here now. There's going to be grandkids. And what would each of them do without each other? They are best friends. She had the brilliance to think about the future and say, wait a minute, I don't really want to leave him. He's an a-hole for doing this, and maybe he'll stop. Maybe not. I don't know if he stopped or not. Fox News says he hasn't. We don't know that for sure. But she
National
had
Enquirer says not either.
Oh, National Enquirer, your Bible. I think she was brilliant about that decision, to be able to think and not just to react and to look into
Like
the future.
most women would.
She's looking for power. That's what I see in Hillary. She wants the power. She wants the power and the prestige of the office. I don't think she gives a hoot about the people.
One of the things
all
really,
these years of taking care of kids and women, of thinking about kids and women?
Okay.
No.
Oh, yes.
one of the things that really bothers me about the Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton saga is that there are documented statements that Hillary made about the many women that Bill Clinton was accused of having affairs with. And many of those statements were far more despicable than things that Trump said about the Miss Universe, for example.
Yes.
I mean, she was trying to destroy those women.
She's a hypocrite
Well,
because
she
she
came
works
out
both
right,
sides of the road.
right when it was happening. She just, what are you going to do? It all came to light. She's thinking about what to do.
She's trying to
you
save
would do
her.
the same thing.
She's trying to save their
No,
position.
I don't like any of these people, including him.
To me, what's hypocritical is her attacking Donald Trump, which she did in the first debate and in the second debate, about the horrible things that he said about this Miss Universe, that she was too fat, etc. They were nothing compared to the despicable, destructive, horrible things that Hillary said about the women
Who were victims.
that Bill
Victims.
Clinton
Yes.
took advantage of.
Yeah.
And
They were
to
Clinton's
me,
victims. Bill's victims.
she's not the right person
They were-
to be criticizing Donald Trump about what he said about women when she was so
Let me get Peg's take on that.
Oh my goodness. These are women that were running after a married man. I mean, I'm
So
sorry,
what?
but they, it's fair play. He's wrong for cheating on his wife. These women are wrong for running after a married man.
But
To
he's
me,
not
there's
just
nothing
a married
positive to say
man.
about it.
He's not just a married man. He's the president of the United
Okay,
States.
so they're power hungry and they want position to whatever they're going to get through him. And if they had any sense at all, they're not going to get anything through a married man. And I don't blame the wronged wife for looking at them and saying that they are deplorable, because they are.
Yeah, but don't you see a certain hypocrisy?
No.
Go, Leo, go.
No, she was all all our lives we've heard "Stand by Your Man." Tammy Wynette, the country singers, everybody.
But she went on television, Hurricane Hillary, and we said,
Since-
I'm not some little stand by your man like Tammy Wynette said. That's not
That
me.
was a different
And she
time.
proceeded
That
to
was
then
a
stand by her man.
That was a different time.
Exactly.
Because she worked on her marriage, as
And-
opposed to
and-
going through 3 marriages.
And that is a wonderful thing to keep trying to work on your marriage, because it's hard. Marriages are hard, and she's trying to do that.
So you don't see any hypocrisy at all.
You know, if she was attacked, no, if her husband was unfaithful, it's not unusual for the wife to go after the women. It's just not.
So you give her a pass on that.
I'd give her a pass on
You
hypocrisy.
too.
Oh, absolutely.
What about you, Mary? You've listened to your fellow women here. They're all unanimously agreed that Hillary gets a pass. Are you going to join the women or the men?
Oh, what a
Now
setup.
that's a goofy question.
Not that you're on the spot or anything.
I think if I was in her place, I'd probably kill him.
There we go.
And I don't know.
It's a good thing you're not running for president.
And I don't know whether I would be standing by him or not.
I'm gonna start just running.
You know, she didn't cause it. She can't cure it, and she can't control it. His actions. So
But she doesn't have to
look
condone
after-
it.
She has to look
Or she
after.
doesn't. What makes you say she's
herself.
condoning it?
She has
Because
to-
of the way she treated the women.
How did she treat the women?
She tried to destroy those women.
Yeah.
Oh, she didn't try to destroy.
Yes,
them.
she did. She really
Yes.
did.
Yeah, I think she did.
She absolutely did try and destroy
Yes.
them.
And
they asked
I
for
can
it.
understand that
That's
she's
not the
mad
way
at them. But the primary wrongdoer is Bill, not the women.
Right.
Right.
And
Well, I think it was a mutual.
They were in
a
it
mutual,
together.
a mutual agreement between the.
no, the women weren't married. Bill was the one who was married.
And
Anyhow.
they went after him.
Okay, we're gonna move on. This is
Okay, good.
we've
We've
reached the
exhausted
point of
Yeah.
this is going to get boring to my audience because they can't participate. So
They're at home throwing things at the screen.
I don't think they're that. I just excused myself to go to the bathroom, and I saw the monitor in there. You guys look great. I wondered, where the hell are they doing this one?
So where, what kind of specific plans that they wanted to do did you hear from Hurricane Hillary? And what specific plans did you hear from Donald Trump that you remember from the debate?
That I remember from the debate. I actually think they're both working from speeches, and they don't know what they're going to be able to do because they're going to.
So you don't remember any promise they made?
They made promises about tax cuts. They made promises about legislation. They made promises about the environment. They made promises about coal. But I think that they're both dealing with a divided Congress, and I don't know if either one of them can get anybody to work with them.
Mary, did you hear any promises from either one of them that you remember?
Energy from Hillary, and I like it that she is.
What did she say about energy?
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I like it that she is cognizant of climate change. I think that's extremely important, and the world has to pay attention now because it's soon going to be too late. She's the only one talking about climate change, and it is happening.
And you think climate change is a big issue?
Huge.
It is with you. Okay.
Yeah.
John, did you remember any specifics proposals by either one of them?
Yeah, as a physician, I was particularly listening to hear what they would say about healthcare in the future. Hillary's promise about dealing with Obamacare tonight was that she had a plan that would lower premiums and improve coverage, but she didn't say anything about how she would do that.
Is that possible to do?
It's going to take a new way of coming up with revenue to lower premiums and increase coverage. And I don't think Hillary's being honest when she says, I can do that, I've got a plan to do that. I'd like to hear what that plan is, because
Tax the rich.
Obama's not said what it is, and she hasn't said what it is. I was struck by the fact that they did ask a question dealing with the fact that Bill Clinton said that Obamacare was the craziest thing ever. It was kind of startling when I heard him say that, but then I've read in the last 24 hours that he actually coordinated that with the White House, that Obama,
They're looking for cover.
because of his ego, he's not going to admit that what people predicted many years ago was going to happen actually happened with Obamacare.
What did you think of Trump's plan for medical?
Well, what Trump said, again, didn't have specifics other than he would repeal Obamacare and start over.
No, that's not true. He had one big specific, and it was really the only one. He figured by taking down the borders and letting insurance companies sell policies nationally, he would create the competition. Let me explain this to our viewers, so in case you don't understand it, because you might not through the debate. Right now, one of the big issues with Obamacare was whether insurance companies could sell one policy all the way across the country, or whether they had to conform the policy to the requirements of each individual state. And they went with the one on each individual state. See, in California, which is where we are, they say what has to be in the plans. In Nevada, they have different requirements for the plan. In Oklahoma, they have different requirements. So no carrier is able to sell a plan for all 50 states. And that makes it much more difficult for competition, especially if they are a small state like Wyoming or even Nevada, where there's a very small base. And Trump's argument, and the reason that got each of these states basically have politicians who make a lot of money from the local carriers by tailoring to what they want. It's more of a lobbying money stream. They didn't want to let that go to the federal government. So what Trump is advocating, which the Republicans have frankly been advocating for years, was to take down the borders and have insurance be able to be sold on a national basis. One policy, good for all 50 states. Now, from what you know about the industry, is that really going to make that much of a difference?
I don't know if it can make that much of a difference. It would make a difference. On television this week, I listened to one of the Emanuel brothers, two brothers, one's now the mayor of Chicago,
Right.
where thousands of people are being killed, blacks killing blacks, mainly
by guns, not by doctors.
by guns. And he was actually one of the architects, one of the main architects of Obamacare. And I can remember the discussions way back at the beginning that many people, Republicans and Democrats, it didn't matter what party really, were predicting that there was going to be a problem with premiums going up, losing benefits, and also losing your doctor. And of course, Obamacare's architects just basically guaranteed the premiums would go down, your benefits would go up, you would be able to keep your doctor.
Everything they said was a lie.
And so,
and Nancy Pelosi said, "Don't read the bill, vote on it. You can read it later."
So, the other Emanuel brother, who's a physician, was asked about it by the commentator on his TV show, and he said, "Well, it's all the Republicans' fault that they blocked all the things that needed to be done to fix it." Well, they didn't say 6 or 8 years ago that there were a lot of things that were going to happen to make that all come to reality. They just said it's going to happen. But the fact is, they made a terrible mistake because they counted on all the young, healthy people who didn't have insurance to buy insurance to help pay for the sick people who didn't have insurance that were now going to get coverage. But now that Emanuel brother is blaming the Republicans
Right.
because what was predicted many years ago is now happening. And it's not Obamacare's fault or Obama's fault or Hillary's fault, it's the Republicans' fault.
I saw that.
What's crazy about this, what's crazy about this Obamacare is that the penalties for not having coverage are a very small fraction of what it costs to get coverage. The penalties are somewhere between 5 and 10% of what it takes to get coverage.
Right.
And if you file your taxes, they have a box. They just have a little box you check on your return. You can check a box, either I have coverage or I don't have coverage. You don't have to say where it is, give a policy number or anything. All you gotta do is say you have coverage and the penalty goes away. So my hunch is there's a lot of people who are filing their returns saying they have coverage when they don't. And but the whole concept was flawed to begin with. It's like this situation with the pre-existing conditions. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to offer fire insurance for a house. I'm going to give you fire insurance for your house. But you didn't bother to get it. So, you know, tomorrow your house burns down. And the day after your house burns down, you come to me and say, oh, gee, can I buy some fire insurance for that house? I said, sure, here's your fire insurance policy. And I pay for the fire insurance to rebuild the house. And that's what they did with healthcare, with the existing conditions. It just made absolutely no sense, and we can't afford it. And the real crime of Obamacare, and it's a Robin Hood crime, is what they have done is they have stolen healthcare from the middle class, and they have redistributed it to the welfare class. That's what they have done. And I heard an analysis the other day, which is why this election is still likely to go for Trump, because there are a lot of people who are very mad at Trump. There's a lot of women who are very mad at Trump, but they're going to be frightened to death when they find out they don't have health care. And Trump's the only one who was talking about doing something about fixing health care. And Clinton's is probably going to take us to a single payer. Now, I'm on Social Security. A lot of us at this table are on Social Security. And as a result of that, we're on Medicare. And right now, Medicare is great. I'm on the traditional plan. I can go to any doctor. I pay a little bit for my supplement. And pretty much anything I want, I can get. But I don't know how long that's going to continue. Right now, they're using the carrot and the stick. They're using the carrot. Right now, I got to pay for my drugs. They give me the carrot. Well, if I was just go on to KAKZ or some other form of managed care, I won't ever have to pay for my drugs again. And the problem is, once I go there, then there's a gatekeeper to take control of my care. I'm still paying for my drugs. And so I still get to pick my doctors. But I don't know how long that's going to keep on going. And for those of you here who are on the fence, Mary left for a couple of minutes, but Lilio and Peggy and Mary, who are all upset about Donald's women comments, you might think about, if you like your traditional Medicare, who's more likely to preserve the Medicare we have today, Donald or Hillary? Hillary wants a single payer, and the problem with single payer is the single payer decide what they're going to pay. Now, you were telling me, we were talking before the show, folks. John's son is in medical school, and we were talking about one specialty that he might go into. John's son is really a brilliant guy. And I was suggesting cardiology is a really good field, because you know I have a stent, and I see the guy. He wants to see me every 6 months because he gave me a stent. He got paid an awful lot of money to give me my stent, and it was worth every penny. He got paid a lot of money to go exploring my veins, and I was glad to have it paid. Medicare paid it. Didn't cost me anything. I think it's a pretty good field. He likes to see me every 6 months and say hello. But tell me what you told me about cardiology.
Well, the real concern, and you know, I don't think there's a lot of sympathy in non-physician circles.
Don't bet on it.
This, but what has been happening as the government lowers payments to doctors and hospitals, then private insurance companies are following. Blue Cross, Aetna, United Healthcare, they follow that. So what they're doing is they're paying less and less for procedures like coronary angiograms and putting in stents and doing placement of aortic valves via the vein instead of opening your chest. And as the government lowers the payments to hospitals and physicians, private insurance is doing the same thing, so that there's going to be less and less incentive for good people to go into those subspecialties where you really need skilled interventional experts. And I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's a real concern for medical students who are going through trying to decide what subspecialty to go into as to what's going to happen with their reimbursement. I'm telling you, my son's loans after he finishes medical school, it's just astounding.
How much do you figure they're going to be?
$250,000 plus.
Wow.
Now, Donald Trump has a plan. One of the things he wants to let Johnny do is take his student loan payments and deduct them as a tax credit. Just like he wants to do with child care for working mothers, a tax credit where basically you're able to get that money back so that you can live. And because if, when Johnny goes out to practice medicine, the government's going to be taking about 40% of his income. The student loans are going to be taking about 40% of his income. So he's going to be working for he would have been ahead of the game working at McDonald's at $15 an hour. So this is a real problem. What Donald says is, well, gee, if we let him take the student loan payments as a tax credit, that'll at least leave him some money to live on. He won't have to pay the government. And you say, well, why should the government subsidize and pay for his education? It's real simple. He's going to make a lot of money. He's going to pay a lot of taxes. The federal government paid for the education for my father on the GI Bill, paid for the education of David Farber's father, the late David Farber, on the GI Bill. Most of our friends, my parents' friends, were paid for on the GI Bill. And they became the largest middle class in the history of the world. They created what we have now, which is the largest welfare state in the history of the world. It's a capital investment. When the government invests in the education of its young people and gives them a profession that makes money, that is an asset that pays tax dividends for the rest of this person's life. We can't make a better investment than in our people. And what does Hillary say? Well, if you're making 120 grand a year, more than 120 grand a year, I don't want to give you any benefits. If your godfather's making more than 120 grand a year, let your family take care of you. Well, 120 grand a year sounds like a lot of money to somebody who's making $15 an hour at McDonald's. But when you look at what it costs to live today, it's not that much money. This sounds rich. It's really not rich.
Could I just make one more comment?
Sure, please do.
Obamacare. Most people don't know that there's a provision in Obamacare that is giving a lot of money to schools to train nurse practitioners. I'm a strong believer in nurse practitioners. I have worked with nurse practitioners for the last 20 years, and the ones I've worked with are just superb. But what Obama and the architects of Obamacare actually pictured was a future where instead of a physician to take care of people, you would very likely have a nurse practitioner. There is going to be a big shortage of physicians in the next 10 years that's predicted by most people. And Obamacare pictures that taking care of that shortage of physicians in the future will have nurse practitioners to take care of people instead. And I think nurse practitioners are great as part of a healthcare team, but I don't think it's a good idea that nurse practitioners will be the sole healthcare provider that you have as your only choice.
How many years in medical school does a nurse practitioner spend?
Well, not in medical school.
In what I'm saying, in specialized schooling and the training thereafter, how long does it take to be one?
2 or 3 years after college.
So
My son not only is going to do 4 years of medical school after college, it's going to take 3 or 4 years for a residency. And then if you were going to be one of those cardiology interventionalists, it could be another 2 or 3 years in addition to that.
So you're looking at somebody who's had 10 years of specialized training versus 2 to 3 years of specialized training. And the problem is, I mean, if you're coming in with the sniffles, yeah, probably a nurse practitioner will catch it most of the time. But we remember this case we had down in, I guess it was New Jersey, someone who came in with this Ebola virus and was seen in the hospital. Come on in, join us, Mary. Was seen, we're talking about Obamacare.
Yeah, I heard it on the monitor.
Was seen in a hospital, and I don't think she was really seen by a physician. I think she was seen by a nurse practitioner or somebody else who was in a patient emergency room, and they gave him or her, I don't remember what, gave him some antibiotics, sent him home to go reinfect some other people because they missed the Ebola. If they'd actually been seen by a physician, the physician might have caught it. But that's the difference. It isn't, the nurse practitioner can adequately do 95% of the cases just as good as the doc. The problem is those 5% that don't get referred to the doc, and they can be a big problem for the person, and they can be a bigger problem for the people the person comes in contact with. Now, am I stating that right, or do you disagree with me?
No, I think that's pretty right. And you know, for kids that are in high school, when they are trying to make a decision as to whether they're going to become a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant or a physician, and they find out it's going to probably cost you $500,000 in loans to go all the way through medical school, plus residency, plus fellowship, but you can go to nursing school and in 2 or 3 years more you can become a nurse practitioner. If it gets to the place where nurse practitioners with much less training are able to make about the same amount of money as a physician, why wouldn't you choose to be a nurse practitioner? As I say, I really respect nurse practitioners. Do not get me wrong. I've worked with superb nurse practitioners as part of a healthcare team. But if it gets to the point where you've got a choice of becoming a healthcare provider with 4 or 5 less years of school and saving $400,000, I think most high school kids are going to look at the easier route.
Well, the other thing is nurse practitioners don't get sued for malpractice.
Well, that takes the other part of the doctor's money, is the malpractice insurance.
Yeah. One of the things that I actually have advocated is that people who are on Medicaid, which is free medicine, they don't have the right to sue for medical malpractice, because something like over 90% of all the malpractice suits come from people on Medicaid. It's frightening because it's a lottery for these people. Now, I remember very graphically, you know, being maybe 20, 30 years ago, presenting this bright idea to my mother, and we were in the dining room of the Plaza Hotel in New York, and she said, well, that's real interesting. You think they shouldn't have to pay for their malpractice, huh? How about if somebody comes into the hospital and the doctor says, I'm gonna edit this somewhat, you're a dirty, rotten Jew, and sews up her vagina. Now, do you think that person ought to be able to sue? And I said, that would never happen. And she said, well, they did it to my mother. They did it to your grandmother. It's not imaginary, it happened. So I created, based on that, what I call Ruth's exception. And Ruth isn't with us anymore, which is you can't sue for malpractice except in a case of gross or willful negligence or malpractice, because that guy needed to be able to be sued. But
Yeah, of course.
That's a terrible story.
Yeah, terrible.
yeah, all the true ones are. But that would maybe help a lot. So we were talking about the ideas that we heard from the debate. Peg, did you hear any ideas? Remember any ideas that actually any of these either two candidates said?
I think the special prosecutor was a joke.
He was serious.
I know he was. I know he was. But no,
Actually, I'm going to tell you, I don't think it is. I keep on reading. The stuff he said about the FBI is true. I've read about it. The career people are horrified by what they did. That visit with President Clinton and the Attorney General on the tarmac
I agree.
was that. I do think there is something tremendously corrupt about what has gone on here. I think that...
That's a conspiracy theory going right there.
No, it's not a theory, it's a fact, McGee, because these things actually happen. So I don't know that that's all that far-fetched, but anyhow.
I'm concerned about the issue in the Middle East. As I tried to listen to the two of them, I really felt that Donald Trump was saying that Syria is a kind of done deal with Assad and Putin and Iran, and he wants to focus on ISIS in Iraq. But I think we've got a major problem in the Middle East. As I listened to Hillary
Clinton... You really
Clinton,
think so?
Good grief. As I listened to Hillary Clinton, she was saying, well, she's going to go after them with war trials, crimes, and going after leaders, but it's no troops on the ground.
She wants to go after Assad.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think it's going to be a legislative issue. And I just think we don't have a policy for the Middle East that works.
So you're right, we heard two plans. She wants to go after Assad and get rid of him as a war criminal, and Trump wants to leave Assad and Russia alone to go kill ISIS. And which one of these two programs do you think is in our best interest?
Well, I don't think either one of them are particularly in our best interest. I mean, she's talking about something as limited as a no-fly zone.
Well, so what?
Arming Kurds.
What do you think they ought to do?
Well, that's a real hard one, but we have an ineffective program, and I would very much like a serious discussion on the issue of what we do to balance power in the Middle East.
Do you have an idea?
Do I have it? No, but I ultimately think we're going to get involved in war there again.
I think that's very possible, but I frankly, and we've talked a lot about this for many years, I happen to I think our first mistake was trying to undermine Assad. Assad was a dictator in Syria, but we have seen in the Middle East what happens when We let their dictators fall. We let Saddam fall. We didn't just let him fall, we threw him out and we got a mess. We went and took out Gaddafi for no good reason and we created a mess. We let the Mubarak go in Israel, in Egypt, and we got a mess. And Egypt has now been righted by another military dictator. Libya is just a zoo. And Obama and Clinton are all worried about human rights. And what I always say is, before you get rights, first you got to be human. And some of these people who are running around in the Middle East with these drownings and these heads cutting off, they don't fit my definition of human. They may have the same anatomical parts as we do as humans, but they don't have a soul. And so one of the big mistakes, and this started actually with Johnson in Vietnam, before you can have a democracy, you have to have the people agree to a limited government and agree to certain rights for everybody. The reason democracy has never worked in the Middle East is because none of the populations in these countries have been able to agree on limitation of powers. They all want to have it their way. And as long as everybody wants to have my way or the highway, the only way they have is more fighting. And the only way to keep it contained is have a strong man that everybody is afraid of. So that's why Trump's policy of letting the Russians fight it, letting the Iranians fight it, let them get rid of ISIS, who is their enemy, and let Assad run over there, makes a lot of sense to me.
Except for their Russian client states.
Okay.
That doesn't work to our benefit. I
Well,
understand the idea of balanced dictators.
It's not
in
a
the
perfect world, but I would rather have Russia in power there than ISIS in power there. Russia's not sending us terrorists, ISIS is.
They're hacking our computers.
No, they're hacking Hurricane Hillary's computers. There's a difference. And they get all upset about hacking the computer. All they're doing is giving us information, assuming the Russians are doing it, and I'm not assuming for a minute that they are, but assuming that they're behind it. So what? They're giving us information about people who are trying to be dishonest and hide things from us and say one thing to our face and something else to our back.
Interfering with the voting.
They are not interfering with it. They are giving us all of the information that's fit to print. And they are stopping Hurricane Hillary from doing what she did to Bernie Sanders, winning the election by keeping her back dealing secret. They're bringing it out so it's in public, so everybody knows about it. If if you're not doing these back deal things, you got nothing. I don't care if anybody hacks my computer. I don't have anything on there that can't be exposed. I'm not a dishonest person.
It's they're
I also don't use email.
Oh, okay.
I sure as hell don't use it if I want to put something out there that I don't want anyone to see.
You have a back channel.
So what do you think about all of the Syrian people that Hillary wants to bring in here? 65,000 people. Now, if these people are as bad as they say, and I don't know if they all are or not, but why don't...
What if 3 of them are?
That's what I mean. Why don't we take the able-bodied men overseas where they belong and train those people to go back and fight for their own country? Why wouldn't we do that?
Well,
instead of bringing them here where we have to feed and clothe them and their families too.
Let me go through let me redirect that question to take a look at Europe, which has been taking these refugees. I talked a little bit earlier about the need to have, in order to be able to have a country, you have to have respecting of rights. In order to successfully bring in immigrants, the immigrants have to want to blend in and become part of the dominant society. They need to want to learn the language. They need to want to learn the dress. They need to want to learn the values. They need to learn to be part of the society. And one of the problems they're having with these people from the Middle East who are coming into Europe is they're just wanting to be tribal and they're just wanting to be taken care of. They are not blending. And one thing that they didn't talk about in these debates on that issue is something that is really very disturbing. Now, we recently had this young man who laid all those bombs in New York and Trenton, New Jersey. And he was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was born here or he was brought here, naturalized very early. I honestly don't remember. But he was raised as an American. His father became an American, opened a restaurant of some kind that sold chicken that was moderately successful, and the kid really blended, and he became part of American society. Went to school, did pretty well, and he fell. And then we have a Romeo and Juliet, or modern day West Side Story. He falls in love with a Hispanic girl from the Dominican Republic, and he wants his family to accept her, and they won't. And she becomes pregnant and has a child, and the family refuses to accept the child. And the girl goes out with the child in front of the store, show, here it is, here. They treat it like it's a non-person, it's dead. And the kid moves out, tries to get a job to support his family. He can't. The wife finally ends up leaving him and suing him for child support. And the dad wants him to learn his Muslim traditions. He didn't like her because she wasn't Muslim. She was, I believe, a Catholic, but I'm not positive. So he takes him to Afghanistan, takes his passport and leaves him there to learn his culture, the Afghan culture. And the kid ends up becoming radicalized, and the dad eventually loses control of him and actually turns him in as a terrorist. But there we have, this problem starts with an immigrant who wanted to accept the benefits of America. I'm talking about the father here. Wanted to accept the benefits of America without the burdens. Without the burdens to fit into the culture, to melt. We're a melting pot, we have to melt. He wasn't melting, he wanted to stay tribal. He wanted the benefits of the freedoms without the burdens. And he ended up creating a pressure cooker in his son that just finally exploded. And we look, it's always the second, seems to be, our local terrorists seem to be the second generation mainly of Muslim immigrants who settled here. It's the second, the first generation works and does well. It's the second generation that seems to be having all these troubles, that seems to be getting converted to terrorism. And Donald may not have exactly the right solutions, but he's right when he says we have to study this. We have to find out what is going on. We have to find out how these people are getting radicalized, because if we don't, the next life that may be taken may be one of you or maybe one of us. And one of my big problems with Hillary and her campaign, and her saying, well, we have to do our share for the world. We have to take these people in because it's the right thing to do. Well, that all depends. I don't see them, they just got another house, bought the house next door to their home in Chappaquiddick. I don't see them wanting to move some of these immigrants in next door to them. She wants to move them next door to us. And I just have a real problem with the lack of the lack of any concrete plans for that program, this Pollyanna feeling that everything will work out. We've been seeing everything doesn't work out. And so I am very much against this settlement idea. Well, folks, we've been filibustering now for almost as long as the candidates did. And I think that for those of you who are still listening, you're probably tired of listening to us. I think they're tired of listening to me, but I want to thank all my friends for coming down here. You know, I was very proud of our last debate show because we got people on before the talking heads were able to give their propaganda, and we had a very good show, really analyzing what these people actually had to say. Thanks to my friends, I think we were able to do the same thing here. I think this is a very valuable show to you. We tried to be objective and share everything. Almost all of us were objective. We did have one partisan. And I want to thank you for watching, and we will be back on the 19th. I'll be here. Some of the people will be here, some new faces, some old faces, and we'll analyze the last debate. Thank you for joining us. We'll go live.